Welcome to The Wealth Approach, where money talk is anything but boring. Here, budgeting doesn't mean giving up your latte, and building wealth is something we do with heart, humor, and a whole lot of real-life stories. Join hosts Megan Kowalski and Kristin Donnelley, wealth advisors, moms, and your monthly guides to smarter finances, as they share honest conversations, practical tips, and strategies that make sense for real life. So grab your coffee, your car keys, or your favorite cozy spot, and let's talk money.
Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Approach. This month, since it's January and we're in New Year's resolution season, we figured it would be a good idea to do financial goal setting, designing with the end in mind. So we have a lot to cover today, and I'm just going to warn you ahead of time, Kristin and I are very passionate about this topic, probably. So if you are too, we hope you enjoy, and please feel free to reach out if you want to learn more about anything. But we are going to be digging in on good habits in general, and that also translate financially to your life and how you can optimize a lot of that. So, in general, we kind of want to talk about just goal setting. So to start out with what you want to do, you have to first set your goals. And the most important step is just being really intentional with this goal. Again, we're going to start there and then reverse engineer back into it of how we need to get there. So just setting time either individually or as a family with what you want to achieve, and especially if it's financially, what you want to achieve financially as a household this year. So one thing I think just to note when we're thinking about this is, again, to design with the end in mind. So a lot of people hyper focus on the goal. This year I want to save $10,000. That's not actually the goal. That's the target to achieve the either intermediate or long-term goal that you're trying to work on. So again, get a clear picture of what it is you're trying to achieve. Maybe that's long-term retirement, 55. And then we back into the path to get there. And so a lot of people hyper focus on that goal. And there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he goes over the 90-10 focus framework. And so a lot of people get kind of lost in the goal, and they don't really focus on how to achieve it. But really, 10% of your time should be focused on the goal in general. And so maybe that's just reminding yourself on a regular basis or different things. But the other 90% should be the path, which he calls the system, to get there. So that's really where the majority of your focus and energy should be throughout the year to actually feel that achievement and succeed with those goals. So, Kristin, do you want to how would this relate to, let's say, a marathon runner or someone kind of training for something like that?
Well, I mean, probably the best way you would start is to figure out, in my mind, do you really want to run a marathon? You might be a runner, okay? I mean, is the goal really, I mean, is it something you actually want? Because it's really hard to stay with something that you really don't really want to do. It could be fleeting. Like Megan, you ran a marathon, so I'm going to run a marathon too. Is that really my goal? No. My goal would be to get in shape. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, so, what my goal would be to get in shape is running a marathon the way I have to do it. No. And so, I mean, just come up with goals that are really meaningful to you because that is the first step in setting up a system that will help you achieve something that you actually want to achieve. And so, what would you do? You would say, okay, let's say it is that I want to run a marathon. Well, you pick a race and a date of when it was going to be run, and then you start thinking backwards. Okay, how do I prepare for that race? What do I need to do? First of all, I need to go get the new pair of shoes for sure. And then I have to start thinking about, how am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? How am I going to fit this into my day so that it becomes a routine, something that I enjoy, or at least I'm committed to, so that I can get to that goal.
Exactly. And so That's where, so if the goal is in that last scenario, your goal is to run a marathon for whatever reason. Um, wouldn't be my goal, but hey, there's no judgment here. But the point is you can't just decide tomorrow I'm going to go run a marathon. That's not going to happen. It's going to take a very clear path and system that you put in place, and that could be different running apps, different training plans, maybe a personal trainer, like you said, some gear, and you're going to have to put all these things in place to back into that achievement or that goal for the year. But all your energy, 90% of it should be focused on that. And that's really like designing with the end in mind. If you can't just decide I'm going to run a marathon, so I'm going to start running 13 miles a day. That's just an arbitrary, random, temporary goal that doesn't align with your long-term goal, and you didn't kind of back into it strategically. So that's kind of what we're talking about with designing with the end in mind.
I'll just say that even in your example there, I mean, if you look at a schedule for preparing for a race or something like that, they will have, very, very small, you know, small runs at the very beginning to build up. It's a build up. It's taking the time, doing it right, adding different aspects in so that you pull together what you need to actually achieve this goal. And that's one of the things I think is kind of interesting about most goals, is it really is not just um, it's not just, okay, am I going to do it or not? It's when am I going to do it? Who am I going to do it with? Do I need somebody to do it with me? And so, there are actually a lot of parts to really great goals. And so it takes time to layer them in as you're making your plan.
And one thing you just touched on there, which is kind of our second point and what we covered last week, which is really reflection. So first, look backwards. A lot of your goals, they might look similar on paper. They might be, similar enough. So you as a person knows what works best for you. I know I need a village to help keep me motivated. So I naturally don't love dieting or exercise. Some people love it. Hopefully, I can build a habit eventually where I too love it. However, unfortunately, I'm not quite there yet. So I need to build a village around me where we all have common goals to stay on track and to have fun with it and do different things to embed it into our lifestyle so that it helps me keep on my long-term goal with staying motivated and getting enough exercise. So I think that's where you have to really do reflection on what's worked in the past for you and what hasn't. And that can come in so different ways. It could also, we talked about a little bit before this recording was, let's say you are looking to save, a certain amount every month and you have like kind of a tight budget to work with. Kristen, you gave an example of you can set up different systems in place. So like there are little credit card alerts you can set up for yourself to kind of help ping you of like how much you're spending, or budget apps that can show you, are you still kind of within the parameters of your monthly budget that you set out each month? So depending on what the goal is, you can set up different systems or people in place to help really keep you on the beaten path. And that's really important to learn from past experiences because everyone's different. So you really have to know what works best for you to keep you
Mhm.
motivated.
And so, Megan, we talked about goals are probably one of the most, goal setting and achieving are probably some of the most important skills to have. And we do them every day. But there's something a little different about financial goals. And the difference is that financial goals are financial, anything can be like a real mental block for people,
Yeah,
for a lot of different reasons.
right.
And also, sometimes there are aspects to achieving goals that are a little bit more technical than most people think. It's not just saving, a little bit of money, it's saving and investing. It's saving and putting it in the right type of account. It's about a lot of different aspects. And
Mhm.
so that's what makes goal setting for, financial goal setting, so interesting because you can build good habits and you can also learn a lot along the way that will help you achieve even bigger goals as you go through life.
Mhm. So, I would say the next most important thing, doesn't really matter what the goal is, this rule will kind of drill back to anything, is just consistency with the path. So whatever that is. So again, kind of referencing back to that Atomic Habits book by Jeremy Clear, I believe it is, James Clear. Um, he references something called, I think it's the 2 minute rule. And so he tells a story about a gentleman who his goal was to start working out or something. And so he implemented a 2 minute rule where he'd have to go to the gym every day, rain or shine, for 2 minutes. Now, what do you think happened with this gentleman? I mean, on paper, you're like, he worked out for 2 minutes. He didn't even have time to finish his warm up. So I'm assuming he didn't lose too much weight or anything, depending on what he wanted to accomplish. But in this example, this guy lost 100 pounds. And you're like, wow, how does someone convert 2 minutes a day to 100 pounds? And the difference is all he was doing was focusing on building that good habit, or basically getting rid of the bad habit, which is like using different frictions or obstacles that pop up through the day as an excuse to not go to the gym. So he's like, I don't care if I barely work out, I just have to get there. And probably most of the time, he's like, well, I'm already here. I might as well start working out. So he just built the habit of not being a gym person to becoming a gym person, and he saw the physical results thereafter. And so I feel like that's a really good example. And it's called, what does he call it in the book? He calls it incremental habits, I want to say. And basically, I relate that financially to compound interest. So anything over time, it's really just consistency and letting that build for you. But if you're not consistent with it, that's where you can just see that you're not meeting your goals. So backing into some type of consistency, we do this all the time with our clients where, especially when people are just starting out, maybe they just graduated or they just started a family and they're really getting into, trying to take everything seriously and start investing, but they might feel discouraged about how much they have each month to start with. Our answer is it does not matter. It doesn't matter if you're starting with $50, $100, $5,000, $10,000. The number really doesn't make a difference. What does make a difference, kind of relating back to this 2 minute rule, is consistency. Mm-hmm. So making sure, and we'll kind of get into, a little bit more finite details there, but just making sure it's something that you can be consistent with. And there is such thing as too much of a good thing. So our argument is if you kind of like try too hard and you're maybe over saving or over investing, but it doesn't align with your realistic budget and lifestyle, then you're going to fail. Just like when you're dieting, if you cut back too much and then you have one cheat day and then you're like, okay, I'm going to try again next year. So we want to help just keep you on the path long term with consistency. And that is truly the most important, I would say, skill that you can add to anything to make sure that you are successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, setting up a budget is all about making sure that you budget in the savings component. I mean, the budget is the spending of a portion that allows the other portion to be saved. And so it all is kind of the same. All of the same type of strategies.
Yes. And a lot of people, they might look at their budget and be like, I don't have a lot to work with. Like I can't take this seriously yet. And our argument is, yes, you can. So if you are buying a coffee or maybe 2 coffees a week, mm-hmm. If you instead were to have invested that money from right when you graduated, let's say at age 22 to when you retire at 65, 2 coffees a week, that habit costs you over $400,000 that can invest and grow over time for you. Mm-hmm. So that's where our argument again is the number doesn't matter. It's really the habit and consistency. If you are determined to get that end goal in mind, then we can figure out different strategies to get you there, regardless of the resources that you're starting with. And that, Kristin, kind of goes into our next thing, which is really just like reverse engineering, okay, if we know it's kind of a stair-step approach and it's really all about consistency, what is the path then to really goal set and work towards specific goals? And how should we go about doing that?
Well, you can start with, of course, reflecting on the goals that are important to you. Second of all, coming up with the goal, the end goal. One of the things that they talk about is visualizing if that goal is one of the things that you really, want, and visualizing it. When you visualize it, you internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a little bit more commitment to it, believe it or not. But some strategies can also be to, like, for example, they talk about or studies show that if you remind yourself of a goal daily, that it will be top of mind and you're more likely to achieve it. That's one. If you write a goal, if
Mm-hmm.
you write a goal, you're far more likely to achieve that goal. If you get up in the morning and you read the goal and then you write the same goal down, you're even more likely to achieve that goal because you have reinforced in your mind that this is something you'd like to do, and you'll be thinking about that from that time through the end of the day. And so one of the things you can do is, just focus on the goal, meditate on the goal for 5 minutes a
Mm-hmm.
day. That's also helpful because it sets the only thing that's keeping you from achieving a goal is what's up here. And so when you can train your mind to think that it's an important goal by thinking about it, you're far more likely to achieve it.
100%. And just not letting, self-doubt or different areas of friction get in the way from you accomplishing that because it is really, really easy. Like the slightest, bit of uncomfortable, you're like, okay, you know what? Let's try again next year. Let's scrap this. We'll go from scratch. But we want to share kind of a step approach, especially financially, with how you can really kind of tackle some of these items. So, first and most important step is just where are you at today? And really, the only way to know that is build your net worth statement. And that is just kind of what assets, liabilities, resource, everything. What do you have in place today? What do you look like on paper financially? And that number doesn't matter. We just need to know the starting point. Next is building out an annual budget that kind of drills down to a monthly budget. And so that's really so that we can kind of understand, okay, here's where you're starting at. Here is what we have to work with and the different levers that we can use or have in place. And then the next step is like you said, figuring out, brainstorming, maybe sitting down independently as a family. What do you want to achieve? Now, here's where it can get tricky. You might have multi-layered goals. So you might have a short-term goal where, you know what, I don't have enough saved up in our, short-term cash flow. So first we need to like finish filling up that reserve. We also have a maybe intermediate goal to save for a portion of our kids' college. And then on top of all of that, we obviously need to save for retirement, and we're looking to retire at age 62. So those are multi-layer goals, different timelines, same starting resources, same fixed monthly expenses. And so, especially if you're someone who looks at that and you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. We already told you in the beginning, it doesn't make sense to just pick a random number and say, okay, I'm saving 10,000 a month into an individual investment account. There's no way to know that that decision is going to back into those three very different goals on paper. So this is where we recommend getting a financial plan, and especially when you have multi-layered goals, working with a specialist like a financial advisor like ourselves that can help strategically back you into that. Because again, even if you kind of know the path, which might just be how much you need to save each month, the next step is strategically how you can really optimize every dollar to back into those separate sub strategies. And so that could be using different types of accounts. That could be supercharging different expenses. So it really just depends on what you're looking to achieve. But you could have the same net worth, the same expenses, two different plans. One achieves it much faster or much better than the other, just depending on how you approach it. So that would be our next step to make sure that you are working with someone, and then you can adjust your assets that you have in place, maybe your allocations between different investments, and then just constantly reassessing your financial plan over time. Am I
And
on track?
and Megan, this is a skill. And it's a skill that you might have to approach many different times throughout your life from many different standpoints. Like, for example, if somebody finds that they are getting a divorce, okay, so that plan that they had worked for their whole lives now is like a house of cards gone up in smoke, and now you start all over again with a new reality and a new situation and new goals.
Mhm.
Or if a spouse dies, or if something else happens, somebody loses a job. I mean, so there are a lot of reasons to build this ability to develop the skill of goal setting, and then also go through the steps that you just talked about, because it's likely you're going to have to do it many times throughout your life,
Mhm.
and come up using different data and come up with different goals and a different process because something has changed in your life. Because that is the one thing that we can all count on, is that there will be changes for
Yeah,
everyone.
100%. And it's really that discipline and that skill set to build over time.
Mhm.
But I think also one thing to note is, especially if you have a family, make sure everyone is aligned and we're all working towards the same goal. So if you think about everyone is in a boat and you have one person rowing that way, the other person rowing that way, the person steering the boat is steering it the other way. That might be your financial advisor. If you're not all very much so aligned on the same page and each doing your job with whatever that plan is, then you might not be able to achieve it. So you have to have full alignment. Make sure you are all rowing in the same direction of where you want to go, or you might be just spinning in circles. And so that's where, especially like, I know a lot of families, they might have a spouse who's a big saver or a big spender. Someone has to buy all the kids' clothes and someone has to save for it. So there's no judgment here, but we all have to be on the same page with what's that budget and how are we going to kind of work within it to meet our long-term goals. And that's why it's super important as a household to, first of all, agree on the goals, and then to build the plan together and make sure you have all parties or all systems in place to really carve out that path or that system that you need to get you to that
Mhm.
result.
And I think it's important to also have some small wins, some small celebrations for the wins along the way. I mean, if you really are able to achieve some of your goals, then maybe it's, like in your case, a day at Disneyland,
Yeah,
or something like that. I mean, something that, wow, we achieved this small goal, on our way to our bigger goal, let's celebrate.
100%. And that's, I think, like you said, going to keep you motivated if we kind of relate it back to dieting. If you carve out all sugar and all caffeine and all everything, you might grow very unhappy or whatever it is. But if you kind of build in little cheat days or little cheat meals here or there, it will help keep you on the long-term path of just long-term dieting. And that's kind of how we would relate it back to here.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we covered most of what we wanted to kind of go over today, but main themes that we want everyone to walk away with is just starting somewhere. It's really just about that 2-minute rule, building that habit.
Mhm.
So figure out where you're starting from, building the habit that backs into those long-term goals, and just stay consistent. We highly recommend working with someone like us that can really help get you to where you want to go. So we'll take all the inputs and give you guidance with how to do it. Um, and then this is something, again, you want to reassess every year because, like you said, everything will change. Your income might change for the better or worse. Your assets might change for the better or worse. And you have to kind of reworkshop
Yeah.
a plan along the way.
Build in a feedback system
Yep.
so that as things change, you can make the most of it, because change is generally good, can be good,
Yeah.
and it can open up new opportunities. But if you're not paying attention, then you can miss the opportunities.
Right. And just like, I, boiling it all down, the big difference between someone being successful with this and not is just action, just doing it. Just like that gentleman who went to the gym for 2 minutes, just get yourself to the gym, just get that automatic deposit set up, just set the meeting. So take the steps in place. It might be uncomfortable temporarily, but you'll build more confidence in maybe your understanding and different things where it will feel exciting, and maybe you'll get as excited as Kristen and I do every year when we get to kind of reapproach these matters and figure out what's our next goal we want to tackle. So we hope this motivates you and your family to get started, and don't feel like you're too far behind. There is no, it's never too late to start. You just gotta just start somewhere.
Yeah. And you're not alone because you have your advisors. So,
Definitely. So thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed, and let us know if there's anything else you'd be interested in learning about.
bye.